Podcast Answer Man, episode number 176.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
Hi, this is Tim Berkman from the New Media Expo, and you're listening to the Podcast Answer Man.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and today I'm going to be doing something I have never tried before, and it might actually be a complete flop and failure, but hey, I'm always willing to try something new. Well, okay, maybe not always. Sometimes I'm kind of hesitant to take on anything different than what I'm used to, but today, I'll tell you what I'm going to try new. Okay, so as you know, I've already taken the Podcast Answer Man show off of my live show Thursday schedule so that I can always sit down and kind of map out the show or at least do a little bit more of I guess maybe a strategic approach to the things that I share. And I don't necessarily want to be in front of a live audience, so I don't feel like I need to perform for anybody. And for those of you who are listening week after week after week, you've heard me talk about this. So that's all old news. But for those of you who are brand new, thanks for subscribing to the show, and I hope that you enjoy the content that I provide today, especially since it's going to be done in a completely different way that I've never tried before. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this the build it as you go approach to podcasting. It just occurred to me that, I could sit here and spend the next 45 minutes to an hour putting together all of the items that I'm going to share in this episode, putting together my roadmap, if you will. But I thought to myself, what would happen after I've actually sat down and jotted down some notes about the very first topic that I want to include today? What would happen if I was, with the ability to pause my recording? What would happen if I actually decided to go ahead and record the first story and then take it and hit pause on the recording, and then when I have the next story, I unpause and continue on? Well, if you want to find out what it's going to be like, listen to this episode. Now, before I begin today, I want to bring up some feedback that I had received from a longtime listener to the Podcast Answer Man about episode number, I believe it was 175. I think that was the episode where I had titled it something like "How to Get Somebody to Pay You to Go to a Conference." And by the way, just real quick here, I just felt like I should insert this. Did you notice the pause in there? I don't know if you noticed that, but there was a pause. I actually paused the recording right before I said, now the first thing I want to get to is blah, blah, blah. I inserted a pause there. I actually paused the recording, and in fact, I had a chat conversation via Skype with my virtual assistant. I had noticed while I was actually doing the intro of the show that my VA had actually sent me a little Skype message that said, "Hey, Cliff, are you still there?" And I said, "I'm recording a show." And she says, "Oh, okay." And basically, as soon as I said, "And so if you want to hear what that sounds like, listen to this show," I hit pause. And then after I hit pause, I went ahead and had that chat conversation with her, and I knew exactly what I wanted to come up with next. It was the feedback about episode 175, and I came back, and this is the first topic that I'm talking about today. And so probably I would assume that had I not told you that, you would have never known that there was a pause there. I don't know. We'll find out if you can pick up the pauses in the future portions of this episode, but I probably have this feeling that you probably will now that I've pointed it all out to you. Anyway, let's talk about this feedback that I got. I won't mention who the feedback came from because that's unimportant. But what is important is the feedback that I got. And I feel like it might be possible that if one person came away from listening to episode 175 with this thought or this opinion, then it might be possible that, with the thousands of people that might be listening, that perhaps somebody else has this opinion too. So here is the feedback that I got. Here it is. And I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Hey, Cliff, this is so-and-so. First off, I want to thank you for your show and advice on the forums. They have been very helpful with getting my podcast started. However, I just listened to episode number 174. Okay, there you go. It was episode 174. However, I just listened to episode 174 of Podcast Answer Man, and I was very disappointed." Now, please understand, I'm reading an email, However, and in the email, as you guys know, there is no inflection of voice. Words are static. There's no body language. It might have just said, however, I just listened to 174 and I was very disappointed. But you always read these things, without knowing what people are actually feeling, sometimes through your own lens of how you might be feeling today. So be careful when you criticize somebody, how it might be taken, it could be taken completely differently, depending on how their day's going or the lens in which they view your words on the screen. But anyway, I'll just read it to you as I kind of got it. So anyway, he writes this. He says, however, I listened to episode 174 of Podcast Answer Man, and I was very disappointed. I understand how excited you are about the sponsorship, but you even admit it yourself that you need to have been doing this for a while to be able to do this sort of things. I've always felt that your show has been geared towards those that are new into this field of podcasting or still inexperienced. Therefore, 174 would be of no benefit to them or me, and the or me is in parentheses. To me, the episode came off as, look at what I can do, and listen to what these people say and how they talk about me. And I'm not trying to be mean. Just for the future, I think that there might be better ways of tackling this. Either a blog post or maybe a small portion of the show, but not an entire episode. Just some of my thoughts. Let me know if I'm completely off my rocker here. Keep up the good work. Well, anyway, I responded to this email. And the way that I responded to this email was I actually sent him a personalized response. And since he asked me if he was off his rocker, because of the relationship I had with this individual, or that I have with this individual, I mean, we've exchanged a lot of forum conversations back and forth. He's been in the live shows, all this other stuff. Because of this relationship, I sent him a pretty cocky response. But I think he knew that I was just kidding. But anyway, I wrote him back and I says, I do think you're a little off your rocker, and here's why. But I won't go into word for word what I wrote. But here's the one thing I want to say to anybody who thinks that I was just, that I kind of came off saying, hey, look what I can do, and listen to what other people are saying about me and how cool I am. Because that's not what I wanted to portray with episode 174. Here's the other thing, and I want to also address this idea that this podcast is geared for the brand new podcaster or the very inexperienced podcaster, because it's not geared for that. It is, but it's not. So let's clear up a couple things here. First and foremost, if you go all the way back to episode 001, which I don't know if I would encourage you to do so or not, it was I was really green in those days. But if you wanted to, you can. It's in the archives. But you could go back and listen to episode 001. And one of the things that I said at the very beginning is like, listen, this podcast, I have a target audience in mind. And that target audience is somebody who is an audio podcaster. Now, I believe that the content that I will produce here will be eligible or applicable to a wide variety of podcasters. I'm talking about somebody who has just heard about podcasting and they're interested in learning more. So they have absolutely zero experience in podcasting whatsoever. And so they, of course, would fit into the criteria of what this person had wrote to me, that they thought this was the experienced or those who are brand new to podcasting. Absolutely, that's one portion of the audience. But I said, it's going to be a broad spectrum. I would like to reach the brand new podcaster, but at the same time, I want to be able to speak to things that are at the level of people who have been podcasting as long as I have. And you know what? Podcasting existed for an entire year before I actually got on board. I got on board at the very end of 2005, and all the way back to, I think, March, April of 2005 is when it got started. So there are people out there with probably about almost a year of experience beyond what I have. And one of the things that I do know is that several of you, and you know who you are, several of you who have been podcasting longer than I have, listen to every single episode on a weekly basis of Podcast Answer Man. And so my goal here is not just to be here for the brand new podcaster. So, for example, not last week, but 2 weeks ago when I did that episode, I had some feedback from three different people who emailed me and says, wow, I really appreciated that. I never really thought about the possibility of of getting a sponsor to attend an event like that. It's something I'm going to look into. Now, I won't mention who those 3 people are right now because I didn't ask them if I could share their information in the podcast. But here, the situation is this. Those 3 people that emailed me, they've been podcasting long enough, and I actually know the type of audience that they have and the type of quality work that they do and the amount of content in their archives. And so their reputation, their social clout, if you will, it definitely would warrant them to be able to do exactly what I prescribed in Podcast Answer Man episode number 174. I have no doubt at all that they could take the exact formula that I gave in that episode, and they would be able to, if they wanted to, within the next 10 days, land a sponsorship to attend an event and probably, I won't mention dollar amounts, but they would get it all expenses paid exactly the way that I did. For those of you, however, who say, who may be thinking, well, gosh, Cliff, this came off as, well, look at what I can do and look how other people talk about me. Well, the whole deal here is I want people to not think of it that way, but understand that my desire in sharing that wasn't to say, look at what I can do. In a way, maybe it is, but really the idea, the emphasis is look at what you could do. That's why I wanted to share that. Episode 174 is all about the things that are possible with podcasting. So when I share a major success here that I have faced, it's not for me to say, hoo-hoo, look how awesome I am. It's for me to say, wow, all of this has been made possible because of the efforts that I have made in podcasting and new media and social networking and building a brand online. And I share all of these successes, and trust me, I want to share my successes with you guys without sounding like I'm bragging, but I want to share these successes because I want you, the newer podcasters, the ones that are just getting into this, the ones who have been doing it for a while, but you feel like you're still just this hobbyist, I want you to think and dream big. The whole idea of this podcast is not to keep you where you are. The whole idea of this podcast is always to get you, to urge you, to inspire you, to encourage you, to kick it up a notch, to take it to the next level. I want to achieve major successes in my business through the use of podcasting, new media, social networking, and all of this stuff. But while I want to achieve all those successes and financial successes and all kinds of other successes, because I've got a family of 5 I want to provide for. So personally, I want to do this, but I want to do this and I want to help pave the way and share some of my experience with you guys to inspire you to do similar things. So it doesn't matter if you just recorded your 3rd episode of your podcast and you sound like a complete novice, because like I said, go back and listen to episode 1 of Podcast Answer Man. And at that point, I had already been podcasting for like 9 months. So I mean, that just gives you an idea of where I was after 9 months of podcasting. Now, could I have done what I did in episode 174 within my first year of podcasting? Absolutely not. And I even made a point to say that, just as this person wrote in. He says, you even said it yourself. You not just anybody can sit there and do this. It's a result of what you've done over the years. And that's my point. My point is that you should be doing some things over the course of the next couple years, building real, authentic relationships with your audience on a one-on-one basis. You build your community around your podcast one person at a time. And so here's the situation. Don't look at episode 174 or the various other shows where it just sounds like Cliff is just showing off and saying, hey, look at me, look how cool I am. Look at this as me saying, hey, look at the things that I've accomplished, and I believe that by sharing this, I want you to understand, I believe this is possible for you too. And for many of you listening to this, everything I said in 174, you could do it right now. But for about 80% of you, you're not there yet. But I want you to think, and I want you to dream big, and I want you to understand that if you keep at it, the chances are I'd say there's about a 95% chance that anybody who stays in this long enough, who sticks with this in the long haul, you get around episode 80, 90, 150, whatever the case may be. Not that there's a magic formula, but there'll be a place where you could actually pull off what I talked about in episode 174. I really do believe it. And so I encourage you guys to continue to listen. And when I talk about this super advanced, big idea stuff that seems way beyond your reach, like for example, how about this? I just on Tuesday, was it Tuesday? No, Wednesday morning, yesterday morning, I won't say his name, but I actually had a guy call me up or actually send me an email, and he says, I would like to talk to you. I'd like to hire you for an hour of consulting because I want to talk to you about the potential of doing this podcasting and kind of making, this a little bit more as a bigger part of my career. I really found some enjoyment out of this, and I would like to talk to you about how I could possibly incorporate this into my business plan and how I can take this to a huge level. And this is somebody who's like, I don't know, on episode 9, 10, 14, I'm not sure, but this is somebody who says, Cliff, I want to do this. I get a great amount of satisfaction and joy, and people are giving me feedback that says, wow, you found a niche here. This is something you need to focus on. That was exciting. It was a great conversation, and I love the direction that this person's heading. And I just want to say this stuff's possible. I mean, it's not for everyone, and that's not my point. I understand some of you are hobbyists, and you're just in this for the hobbyist part of it, and you're completely happy where you are in your career and your life. That's totally cool, and I'm going to continue to have content and information there that will be applicable to you. But if I want to spend an episode where I'm going to share an entire well-thought-out idea of something that you could potentially achieve somewhere down the road, I'm going to do that. And I hope that you guys are cool with that. So anyway, let's talk about something different here. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is an email that I just got. I can tell you right now, it was just a few minutes ago, in fact. It came in, let's see here, today at 4:23 p.m. from Tony Rinkenberger, and he says, hey, Cliff, I thought you might like this. Oh, by the way, the subject of the email, podcasting is indeed not dead. And he says, Cliff, I thought you would like this with school starting. And he gave me a link to a post on Mashable. Now, Mashable is a hugely popular, wildly successful blog of news and events and technology and stuff like that. I am a Mashable techaholic. All right, I love Mashable. I read it all the time. Well, I read the headlines all the time, and then I'll occasionally capture about 8% of it. Really is something that's interesting enough for me to go in and read the whole article. So I love this. And he sent me this, and this is a blog post titled 15 Essential Back to School Podcasts. It says, with another long, hot American summer coming to a close, many students are scrambling to get back into the learning mode before school starts. One of the simplest ways is to ease that transition is with podcasts. Whether your passion is American history or algebra, there's probably an educational podcast out there for you. While these programs probably won't mirror your lesson plan, they will explore topics covered in class. Below is a sampling of some of the exceptional podcasts that both teach and entertain. But best of all, they're free. Read on for your 2010 downloading curriculum. And he breaks these down. He's got the category of science. He talks about Radio Lab, which investigates some of the world's most intriguing scientific questions in a unique conversational format. Then there's history. It says here, in Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, Carlin, a veteran journalist turned podcaster, dissects the textbook version of events. In shows that often run over an hour, the host passionately retells some of history's best stories. I'm interested in that one. And matter of fact, I'm definitely going to pause right now and go subscribe to it. Okay, so I just went and downloaded that. Site's not all that great, but And he's only got 11 of his 35 episodes online, so that's not cool either. I would have liked to have been able to see what was in the archives there, Dan, but I've went ahead and subscribed to it, and I'm going to listen to the 2 most recent episodes, which are Death Throes of the Republic. I have no idea what that's all going to be about, but we'll see. All right, moving along here, they've got economics. There's the Planet Money is the NPR's podcast on global economics and business. For English, there's Cliff's Notes, and it says, for those of you who couldn't make it through Wuthering Heights, Cliff's Notes Cramcast would have been a lifesaver. This free podcast reviews some of the stuff you'll need to know for the big test and does it in 3 to 4 minutes. Of course, these podcasts can't cover every detail. To do that, you'd need to read the book. And just looking at the articles that they have here in the feed or in the archives, they've got the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is available for free, The Great Gatsby, Julius Caesar, Lord of the Flies, Macbeth, The Odyssey, Romeo and Juliet, The Scarlet Letter, A Tale of Two Cities, and To Kill a Mockingbird are just a few that they have to offer there. All right, foreign language. The internet is full of podcasts that cater to students learning foreign languages. For those interested in major European languages, Radio Lingua is a good bet. And also there's another reliable hub is Open University. For math students, those math geeks out there, for those of you who struggle to calculate a 15% tip, the Math Dudes podcast is a must listen. Every week, affable nerd Jason Marshall explains basic concepts like how to calculate the area of an object or how to add faster. Interesting stuff. Current events. There is the Bugle podcast. And of course, there's plenty of other options and other stuff in there as well in this article. I'll put a link to this article titled 15 Essential Back to School Podcasts in the show notes today. Now, what's exciting about this, and by the way, Tony, thank you so much for sending along this email. I really appreciate you doing that. It does demonstrate that the podcasts are still out there. They're still huge. They're still big. In fact, one of the other things that I want to explain to you, there's this whole joke, is podcasting dead, with people like Michael W. Gohagan and Leo Laporte throwing around words that they really shouldn't be throwing around, but they do anyway. Just another example of how podcasting is not dead. Tuesday, I had, in my business, on this Tuesday, 2 days ago, I had the second most profitable day of my entire business life. Now, I've been doing this podcasting stuff for 5 years now. I've been doing it full time since January of 2008. My most profitable experience so far in a single day was when somebody did take me up on my offer for a full day of consulting at their location for $2,500. And that was, I drove all the way to Nashville for that. And that was my most profitable single day of income, directly related to my consulting. Well, on this Tuesday, I will tell you that I made a total profit from the hours of 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. I talked to 5 people throughout that day and made a profit of $1,704. Now, that is from consulting at $150 an hour, which is my current rate, and I sold several packages, and let's just put it this way, a lot of packages. I sold more than $7,000 worth of podcast equipment on Tuesday in packages. So it was a very profitable day for me. Needless to say, people are still very much interested in getting into the world of podcasting, and I still will say, hands down, we're only at the very infancy stages of what podcasting will offer the world, and it's going to be bigger. And one of these days, people are going to quote me and say, Cliff was right. He said it in 2010 that even 5 years into it, it was still in its infancy stages. I said the same thing about Twitter. When Twitter was, back in 2007, I said Twitter is going to be mainstream. People can say it's just a fad if they want to, but by golly, I sat there and saw something on TV last night, and somebody said, it was a like Entertainment Tonight or something like that. At the end of the show, at the sign off was, "That's all we have for this show, and on behalf of such and such, and for more information from me, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/ and then she gave her username. So I'm telling you, Twitter's mainstream. Podcasting eventually is going to be mainstream as well. It'll be just as well known as blogging is today. Speaking of my clients who are, hiring me to teach them how to podcast and stuff like that, buying a lot of equipment, big packages that get them started well beyond what I ever had when I first got started podcasting. You might imagine, perhaps that's great, Cliff. These people are getting into podcasting and they're spending a lot of money on getting quality equipment and stuff like that. But the question is, how many of these people are really getting their value out of podcasting? And, and of course, the question, I always have that concern myself. I really don't want to ever take advantage of anybody. And I want to make sure that people aren't just impulse buying and that they're going to buy all of this equipment and never do anything with it. And it seems like one of my good clients and I guess somebody I would consider to be a friend these days, Dean Soto, had some concerns initially, thinking maybe perhaps this was an impulse buy. But this, I will just tell you, this is a little bit of a testimonial, but this is just a testimony to the fact of what happens with my average client. So have a listen to what Dean has to say.
Hey, Cliff, this is Dean from So Totally Business Savvy podcast. And I just wanted to say thank you. I was really hesitant at first when I first started doing the podcast after I'd bought the equipment from you, kind of thinking that I might have made a mistake in doing this. But after it was actually my fourth episode of So Totally Business Savvy, I interviewed a guy by the name of Paul Tran, and he is a multi-business owner. And he really brought credibility to my podcast, to me, and on Twitter. This has never happened before, but I'm an IT business and IT consultant, and one of the things I want people to but to see me as a business advisor and a business consultant. And without even prompting, I've been on Twitter for over a year now, but just in the matter of the time that I've done my podcast, without prompting anyone, I had several people comment and retweet my episode with Paul Tran saying things like business advisor Dean Soto interviews Paul Tran, or things of that nature, which is absolutely amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. Nothing but compliments, nothing but saying that the quality of the interview was awesome. I mean, I'm just extremely grateful. I'm so glad that you do what you do. I'm so glad that you have the podcast Answer Man out there for free. I bought Adobe Audition off your affiliate link, and the quality and the value that you've given is tremendous. So God bless. I'm very, very grateful. And if there's anything that I can do for you, that would be awesome. Also, if you want to interview on my podcast, that would be fantastic if you ever have time. But all right. That being said, good luck. Continue, and you're doing great things. God bless, and keep on, brother. Bye.
Dean, thank you so much for your awesome feedback. And by the way, your equipment sounds awesome. I love that you're producing your content with quality equipment. And I'm so thankful for the testimonial. In fact, if you said if there's anything you can do for me, what I'd love is if you wouldn't mind sending me a photo of yourself. And I want to be able to put that audio clip as a testimonial on my website over at podcastanswerman.com/recommendations. And I'll put you up there on my testimonial page with that audio clip right there, because that says it all, my friend. It really does. And I really appreciate that. And by the way, your question about me possibly coming onto your show, all you need to do, send me an email, cliff@ravenscraft.org. Yeah, that's probably the easiest. Or no, just do cliff@podcastanswerman.com. That's the easiest one to spell. So cliff@podcastanswerman.com. Send me an email. I will come onto your podcast. And by the way, I love to come on to other people's podcasts and talk about my passion for podcasting and new media. I do that at least once a week on other people's shows. And I want to tell you, I do it for a couple reasons. I love talking about podcasting. And number two, it always ends up leading me to more clients and more business. So I'll never forget one of my clients here. His name is Winston. His business is no more than 15 minutes from my home. And he was listening. He actually hired me. He hired me. He bought a package of equipment from me. He's got quality Heil microphones. I mean, he hired me to come out on site, help him get everything set up and train him and teach him how to do this. He's bought digital products from me. I mean, this is it's a very profitable relationship for me personally. Do you know how he found out about me? Even though I'm just 15 minutes down the road, he found out about me because I was interviewed by Andy in the UK. So some British guy invites me to come on to his internet marketing podcast from the UK via Skype. I'm on there talking about my passion for podcasting. It turns out that I guess for some reason he asked me where I was, where I actually do my business from, and I had mentioned that I'm in Northern Kentucky. And Winston hears this on the podcast and sends me an email immediately and says, "Hey, you're right down the road. I'd love to come and meet you." And I invited him to come into my studio and see things. And so I would love, Dean, to be on your podcast. It would be a huge honor for me. So please send me an email, cliff@podcastanswerman.com. If anybody else wants to have me on your show, I love that, and I encourage you to try to see if you can work it out to be on other people's shows. Now, I'm a little finicky on who I bring onto this show. I don't do a lot of interviews, but one thing I can tell you is that the people who actually do come onto my show, they get a fair amount of business as a result of it. But I usually do mine on invitation basis only. I don't personally like it when people say, "Hey, can I come onto your show? Will you interview me for your show?" But I never do that to somebody else. I never say, "Hey, I would love to be on your show sometime." But if you get invited on somebody else's podcast, my suggestion is accept the offer. I don't think I've ever turned down an invitation to be interviewed on somebody else's show. So I would love to do that. It would be a huge honor to be featured as a guest on your show, Dean, and anybody else that wants to contact me. I'd love to consider that for you. Okay, so next up we have another phone call that's come in with a question, and this one comes in from James Dibben, and he is calling. He basically was inspired to leave this message as a result of, I think it was last week's episode where I talked about podcastanswerman.com/artwork. If you head over to that website, you'll see a blog post that I have there, or I think it might even be a page. But anyway, podcastanswerman.com/artwork, and here's what James had to say.
Hey Cliff, James Dibben here with the Blue Collar Radio Network at bcrn.tv. Hey, I am getting ready to start a sports-related fan podcast, and when it comes to the artwork, when you're creating this type of a podcast, what are some rules I need to take into consideration when it comes to proprietary logos, and this is going to be an NFL type thing. So, taking into account the NFL and then the local team and their logo, how do I go about, creating the logo for my podcast without infringing on any copyright laws? Just what's your experience in that area? Thanks again. This is James with bcrn.tv.
Well, James, thank you very much for the question, and it is a good one, and because I do a lot of TV show fan podcasts and things of that nature. I want to tell you right now, I personally walk the line, my friend. I walk the line of right up against and probably push over the other side of the boundaries that I should probably stay in. So what I'm going to ask you to do, my friend, is to do as I say and not as I do. I don't want to get myself into any trouble, but I do happen to own the domain Desperate Housewives Podcast, Grey's Anatomy Podcast.com. Let's see, I also have BiggestLoserPodcast.com. I would certainly avoid using the name, a trademarked name in your main URL. It's something that I've done on multiple occasions, and I started all this stuff out when I was just doing this as a hobby, and my philosophy was always, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. Now, these days, I be careful about doing some of those things that I've done. I'm just waiting for the lawyers to send me the letters, and I'll immediately change some things around. But until they say something, I probably won't change very much. But I would encourage you not to really include the trademarked names and definitely not trademarked logos in your artwork. And so, for example, let me just to give you an example here. If the Cincinnati Reds is our baseball team, if I were going to do a podcast, I would do a podcast called, let's say, the Big Red Machine podcast, or the Fans of the Big Red Machine. And the reason I would call it the Fans of the Big Red Machine is because, number one, the word fan is in front. It's like, I always want to make sure that I indicate that, hey, this is, or you could even do the unofficial Big Red Machine podcast. Just make sure you use the word unofficial or fan in there, just so you can clearly communicate zero confusion about the possibility that you are not the official owner of that trademark, of that service or brand, or whatever the case may be. But also, not only that, but the reason why I would call it the Fans of the Big Red Machine is because Big Red Machine is a nickname that is given to the Reds. It's something that's been around for years. So the question is, for your sports team that you want to do a podcast about, is there a nickname that is so commonly known that any fan of that particular football team that they would know right away? It's like, oh, well, that must be a podcast about such and such team. So if there is, I would incorporate something like that. But I would be cautious, especially with the NFL. These people are like the NFL is just like the RIAA, in my opinion. The NFL, you put that logo, by golly, on your podcast artwork, and you are certain to get a letter from a lawyer, and it will be fast in coming. It will be there fast. So yeah, definitely don't use the NFL logo at all. What I would do is what you can do is create a name of your podcast that is going to be easily recognizable or associated to the team that you want to podcast about. And what you could do is, in your description, you can say a fan podcast devoted to the NFL football team of the, Cincinnati Bengals. You could spell it all out in the description. This is a fan podcast of it, and use all the keywords that you can possibly use in there. And then in your FeedBurner feed, when you set it up, you can also make sure that you're using the keywords, the meta tag keywords in there for your NFL and football and the name of the team and all this other stuff. But certainly in the artwork, I would keep it away from anything that would be their logo. So, like, for example, let's just say, it's Chiefs, or if it's Bengals or whatever the case may be, you can use the animal or the mascot, but don't use it in the same way they do it. Kind of have a creative artist, work of art that actually takes that from a different perspective, maybe a different rendition of that particular team's mascot. And do something unique with the artwork, but stay away from the official logos. That's my professional opinion on that one. It'll keep you out of trouble, I think, as much as possible. And moving on to our next topic, we are going to talk to Mitchell Boxeth, who called in and has a question about how I calculate the number of people who are GSPN.TV Plus members. Here's what Mitchell had to say.
Hi, Cliff. This is Mitchell Boxeth calling in with a question for Podcast Answer Man. And my question is about Plus membership. I actually switched my banking account number through PayPal, so my Plus membership ended up getting canceled. And I know it might have caused a little confusion because I guess I didn't pay my membership for a few months because I didn't realize when I switched my bank account information that it got canceled. But I'm happy to say it's back up now, and I'm back to paying my $10 a month. My question is, I know once in a while you do have people that, for some reason or another, financially, they can't do the Plus membership anymore and they have to cancel. And so I'm just wondering how that affects your number. of Plus members. What I mean is, and every time you get a new Plus member, you always post a Twitter and a Facebook saying that you're happy to announce or you're welcoming your 405th and 406th Plus member. And I'm wondering, when somebody cancels their Plus membership, does that 406th and 407th person, are they actually number 406th or 407th? And not, even though it might only have 395, because in that first 395, 7 or 8 of them have canceled. So I'm just wondering how you track that. It's just more of a question than anything. But anyway, love all your shows. Everything you guys do over there is awesome. I love you guys, and we will look forward to hearing your next couple podcasts. Bye.
All right, Mitchell, thank you very much. And I certainly don't have anything to hide over here. And so I will explain to you exactly how I do the calculation of the number of Plus members I have and how I display that. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, anybody who's listening, please go to gspn.tv/plus if you're in front of a computer. And you're going to see two different things. On gspn.tv/plus, you will see at the top of that page, you're going to see a banner. At least right now there's a banner. This could change within the next year or so. But anyway, gspn.tv/plus, there's a banner at the top, and it actually physically says these words. It says, 405 have signed up as gspn.tv Plus members. Come join the community. Now, over on the right-hand side, there's another banner, and this is also on podcastanswerman.com and several of my other sites as well. Yeah, it's kind of like a square with rounded edges. There's an image, a little graphic. It's blue, and it says, "What is gspn.tv Plus membership?" And at the top of that, it actually says 405 and counting. All right. Now, the question is, if somebody was to, at this very moment, sign up and become a gspn.tv Plus member, what would they be? Number one, or they would actually be the 406th gspn.tv Plus member. They would be the 406th person who felt that the content that we were producing here was worth the $10 a month that we ask, so that you have access to all of our content. Now, do we have currently 405 people at this very moment in time paying me $10 a month? The answer to that question is no. And so the question is, what happens if, let's say, the TV show Lost ends and 35 people decide, well, that was really the only draw for me for the gspn.tv community and the content. And so after about 3 months of no Lost content, they say, we're out of here. Well, do I drop the number by 35 people? And so therefore, the banner is actually updated to reflect the smaller number. And then all of a sudden we say, hey, welcome to member number 376. Well, they're not really 376 because somebody else was 376. This is actually the thinking that I went behind, that went into, deciding how I would display the numbers. And so what I decided is that it would kind of be wonky for me, because it wasn't even my idea, but people are really particular about knowing what their number is. It's like there are people who say, "Hey, I am Plus member number 100," or I'm Plus member number 304. So, there are people who know, they know what their Plus member number is. And so they're hoping that one day, like for example, there are 99 people who can say, hey, I have a 2-digit number Plus member, or a two-digit number as far as my Plus member. I'm Plus number 98, or I'm Plus member number 5. And in my mind, somebody who's Plus, who's got that double digit, those are people who have been around since the very first days of me actually going into this full time. And, I think there's a lot to say about that. And so I found that people were very particular. They wanted to know their numbers. And I didn't even track this at first. But when people started asking me, what number am I actually had to go into the system, and I had to actually look at I had to sort everybody by date and the time that they actually registered for their Plus membership. And then I actually did that in a spreadsheet, and I started to add it up, and I said, okay, here's your Plus member number. And there were people who thought they were Plus number 76 to find out that they were actually 73, and person who was 73 or who thought they were 73 was actually 74, and we got all of that worked out, and that was fun or not. But I realized that the people knowing what their number was, that was important to them. It kind of says, hey, I joined in and I supported you since way back when. So somebody who signs up today and his episode, would be, the 406th plus member, when I get to the place where we've got, I don't know, 10,000 plus members, it's like, listen, I was a plus member. I'm plus member number 406. I know people like that. And that's something I've learned over time. So I decided that, if I was to drop the number and then add a number, it makes a difference in other people's minds and in the way that they like to think about things. So I decided I'm not ever going to drop. And so when I was actually considering, when I actually saw some cancellations come through, I was considering dropping the number on the banner. But instead, what I decided to do, and I went through all of this mental process, I decided, you know what? I'm actually going to change the wording. Instead of saying we now have 405 plus members, instead it would actually say 405 have signed up as GSPN plus members. Come join the community. And this is very real and it's authentic. It's true. 405 and counting have signed up to become plus members. Not all of them are continuing their plus membership today. But I still think that the 405 is a very good representation, and it communicates well that, hey, this podcasting thing, Cliff and Stephanie have done this enough to where, and have created enough of a community and enough of an archive and a track record and relationship with at least to where 405 people have decided at least at one point to pay $10 a month for this content. And so the communication is still there. Now, how many people, I can tell you right now, I have no qualms about this at all. I will pull up my plus member spreadsheet that I have, and I will see if I can tell you right now how many people are paying me monthly, $10 a month. I currently have 170 people. 170 people are currently have active PayPal subscriptions. So 170 people currently have active PayPal subscriptions that are paying me $10 a month. All right? So 170. Now the question is like, wait a second, 405 minus 150. Oh my gosh, that's a whole lot worse than what I thought it was. Well, don't think that. There are a lot of people, when they sign up for Plus membership, they sign up for 105 per year. So you get actually a discount if you actually sign up for an entire year. And so there are a lot of people out there that don't like monthly subscriptions via PayPal, and so they just pay the 105 for a year. And I don't really track that in my Plus membership as far as, how many people are paying year by year by year. But I will tell you this, there are approximately, I would say somewhere around 100 people who have signed up for Plus membership over the last 2.5 years who are today no longer active paying Plus members. So we're still around 300 people who are paying for the content. 170 of them are paying for it $10 a month, active PayPal subscriptions. The rest of those active Plus members are paying on an annual basis. And I will tell you, a majority of them have renewed not just once, but more than once. So have paid a total of $315 for 3 years of Plus membership. So very exciting stuff. But Mitchell, I hope that explains it to you. And if anybody else has any questions about how I do Plus membership, why I decided to start charging for Plus membership, how I, what was the reaction of the community, how is it that I actually set it up personally to where only certain people have access to the feeds and nobody else does, how every single Plus member has their own individualized custom RSS feed with their username and password that they have to have, so that if somebody decides they don't want to access anymore and they don't pay, I can actually turn off that feed so it doesn't actually allow them access to future content. How I do all of that? Well, there is a webinar that I did, and it's called How I Do Premium Membership. And again, that's How I Do Premium Membership. You can go to podcastanswerman.com/products, and it's available for direct purchase. It's $100. And I will tell you, I've had multiple people, quite a few people, who have paid me for 2 hours of my time. That's a total of my current rate at $300, who have paid me $300 to sit down and share them with them for 2 hours everything that I share in that webinar, and it's all there. I share a lot of valuable information, a lot of insights about things that I learned. I even share, if I had to do it all again, would I actually share? Would I do it the way that I do it now? And how do I do it? And all this other stuff. It's all there. If you're interested, podcastanswerman.com/products, and it's how I do premium membership. Let's go ahead and take one final call. And our next call is going to be from Keith Parsons, and he wants to know what cables to use to hook up his iPhone.
This is Keith Parsons calling in for Podcast Answer Man. I run a little podcast called Wireless LAN Weekly, and one of the things I'm looking to do is to augment my Skype inbound coming off of Netbook into my Mackie Mixer that I got from you. I'd like to connect it also up to my iPhone so I could make iPhone calls as well. I was just wondering what the cabling I need so I can connect my iPhone to either send the sound of a phone call or the sound coming from a voice clip or something from the iPhone into the mixer so I can save it to the Adderall recorder. Thanks for answering the question. Appreciate all you do there.
All right, Keith, thank you so much for submitting the question for Podcast Answer Man. And here is the cable, and I actually would suggest, I'm sure you can get a cable that would have this, you would be able to pull this off without the adapter plugs. But it's called, it's by its standard name, it's just a standard, it would be like a camcorder AV plug. A camcorder audio-visual plug. And I think if you did a search on Amazon for that, it would be there. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to include a link to one of these in the show notes. Not only that, but I also will share a little diagram that I drew up for Keith. He actually asked me if I wouldn't mind sending him a diagram and working this all out. But what an AV plug is it's 1/8 inch plug on one end of the cable. And on this 1/8 inch plug, instead of being like a TRS, which TRS means tip, ring, sleeve, instead of having a standard TRS, which is like what a regular headphones jack would be, it looks very similar to what you would see on the iPhone earbuds, where it's got the 3 prongs on there, and so there are 3 lines on there. So there's tip, ring, column, sleeve. So there's something like that. But anyway, there are a total of it. You've got the ability for it to plug in so that it's actually not just doing your left and right audio output, but it's also bringing a microphone input. And so it's got a 1/8 inch prong on one end with like 3 little hashes on there, or 3 little lines around it instead of 2. And on the other end of this cable, on a standard audio video cable or an AV cable for this, there would be 3 plugs, 3 RCA plugs on the other end. And typically it will be red, white, and yellow. Now, technically speaking, in audio video terms, your red and white would be your audio channels, red being your right channel, white being your left channel, and the yellow plug would be your video. And of course, if you were to take like a camcorder that had one of these plugs, you would be able to plug the 1/8 inch into your camcorder, and then you probably still have a TV that has audio, video, or AV inputs. And these are 3 little RCA plugs, and you would be able to correspond white, red, and yellow. The white being your left channel, right audio, your red being your right channel audio, and your yellow being your video input into the TV. Well, the iPhone uses the exact same cable. The only thing is they tried to confuse everybody so that you will go out and buy their proprietary Apple cable. But here's the thing. You don't have to go out and buy the proprietary Apple AV cable to hook up your iPhone to the TV or to be able to do what you're looking to do, Keith. Instead, what you have to realize is that your white cable will be your left channel of audio. At least I assume it's left. It might be right. I might have these 2 reversed. But anyway, let's just assume that your white RCA plug is your left channel of audio. Your yellow is actually your right channel, or at least the other channel of audio. And the red cable is actually your audio, or your not your video, but it's another audio. So here's what happens. Basically, what you've got going on here with this cable is that when you plug in the 1/8 inch into your iPhone, the white and yellow RCA plugs are bringing the audio out of your iPhone into your mixer. So you would actually plug the white and the yellow as your audio output of the iPhone and going into the mixer. Now, when you do your mixer mix minus for your Skype setup or whatever setup you have your auxiliary send. Well, you would actually plug in the red cable because the red RCA plug is actually to bring audio into the iPhone. And so what I do is I usually use these adapters called GPR 101s from I think it's from Hosa is the company that makes them. But anyway, they're GPR 101s and they're little 1/4 inch plugs that actually are adapters. So they're 1/4 inch plug on one end and it actually converts it to female RCA. So I put those adapters at the end of each of those cables. I bring in the yellow and the white from the iPhone into the audio input channels of, let's say, line 9 and 10 or 12 and 13. It doesn't really matter which ones you choose. Just bring the yellow and white into your mixer and then send the audio out of your mixer from your auxiliary send using the red plug, and that will send the audio back to your iPhone. I'll be honest with you, I really don't like it a whole lot. I think if you can get some good results with it, it's great. I know on my iPhone 4, I noticed there's a little bit of a hiss or a sound that's emitted during the recording of this stuff. But anyway, I know that Keith has since got this and hooked it up and has been appreciative and said that it actually is working for him. So, hey, if it's working and it ain't broke, don't fix it. So keep going with it. Well, my friends, that is all I'm going to give in this week's episode. We are at 1 hour. I want to say thank you to everybody for subscribing to this podcast. I am tired. It's been a long day. I've been up since 8:30 this morning recording podcast, and it's now 6 o'clock in the evening, and I smell dinner upstairs, and I'm going to go eat some dinner. I wonder how this episode is going to sound. I'm actually going to listen to it myself as I go out for a walk this evening, and I'm going to see how the splices sound because I paused between every single topic in this episode. I'm going to see how noticeable it is. Anyway, I had fun producing it this way. It was a whole lot easier. I took notes along the way so that I'll be able to have thorough show notes, and I'm pretty excited about it. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who have hired me for consulting one-on-one. You guys have made my world turn around. I thank you, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to say thank you to those of you who are GSPN.TV Plus members. You can learn more over at gspn.tv/plus. And, of course, I also want to say thank you to those of you who just are out there listening week after week, telling other people about the Podcast Answer Man. And if you would if you would like to have me come onto your show to be interviewed on your show, I'm more than willing to do so. You just need to ask Cliff at podcastanswerman.com. And, of course, do you have questions for the Podcast Answer Man show? Give me a call. The phone line's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Leave us a voicemail at 859-795-4067. Again, the phone number is 859-795-4067. Of course, if you are a podcaster and you have the equipment to do so, why not send me high-quality audio with your question? Just do me a favor. If you're going to send me an email with a question attached as a file attachment to an email, please do me a favor. Email that to feedback@gspn.tv. I like to forward all the feedback for future shows into that email address. Again, that's feedback@gspn.tv, or you could do feedback@podcastanswerman.com. It'll get routed there because I love Google, and Google is cool that way. Folks, I'm out of here. I hope that you are having a wonderful week. I hope none of this is all about, hey, look at what I can do, but hopefully you'll come away from this thinking, hey, I could probably end up doing that one day if I keep at this. That's what I hope to do. Be encouraged, be inspired, take your show to the next level, even if it's just for a hobby. Kick it up a notch. God bless. Until next time, join the community.